Hi, hello, and welcome, or welcome back, I suppose. So for you, April is now over, which was the month where I was reading through my bookshelf, although I realised as I was checking my calendar today that the review that you would have just seen will actually probably be coming out in May as well, because I didn't quite check the dates on that, but it's fine. I'm still reading this all in April. Actually, I've read quite a bunch just this week, which has been kind of mad. But anyway, I pulled from my title tin, but once again, you don't get to see that unless you watch my shorts, because I have to use my tin to rest my phone camera on. Well, my whole phone, not just the camera. But I pulled out According to Yes by Dawn French, which I have had on my shelf for years. You can see the sticker on it, the 2 for £7. That's from Tesco. I can see that I know that thing. That's now 2 for £9 and has been for a good while now. I know I've had this on my shelf for years. I know it was before the pandemic, because I had this in my old house. I know I moved here with this, and I moved in 2020. So I think I probably would have got it the year that it came out, or at least the year that it came out in paperback, if it did come out in hardback first. Let me see if I can find the copyright page. So this version first came out in 2016. My cat just made a really weird noise. Oh, it's probably Lily being strange. But, yeah, it first came out in 2015, but this version came out in 2016. And I wouldn't be surprised if that is when I got it. 2016, maybe 2017, but too long for it to have been sitting on my shelf. When I say I'm really bad at getting through some of this stuff, this is probably one of the oldest ones on there in terms of length of time it's been on my shelf. Part of it is that I have got rid of a few books, mostly when I moved, and part of it is that I've actually, read them, but a lot of them have gone unread. It's books like this where I've gone, do I actually want to keep this? Because I've not read it by now. That's why I have the title tin, for moments like this where I can go, this actually needs reading. So, as I have been doing with the rest of these I pulled from the tin, the blurb. Manhattan's wealthy Upper East Side has its own rigid code of behaviour, one strictly adhered to by the Wilder Bingham family. Emotional displays unacceptable. Unruly behaviour definitely not welcome. Fun? No thanks. So, when Rosie Kitto, an eccentric primary school teacher from England, bounces into this fortress of restraint with a heart as big as the city, the family quickly discovers that she hasn't read the rulebook. After a lifetime of saying no, what happens when everyone starts saying yes? I'm surprised I picked this up. I mean, I probably did partly pick it up because it's by Dawn French, who, I love Ab Fab, I love Vicar of Dibley. I've never read any of her fiction, but I'd be curious. So, yeah, let's get into that. I mean, I've been curious for, when was 2016? 8 years ago. Oh dear. That's nearly a decade that's been sat on my shelf. That's foul, actually, that's been on here that long. This is why I can't keep going just I'll go to the library, I'll get another one. I have one library book that came through recently, which I probably will read after this, just because I've got it. I don't want to have to keep renewing it, so I probably will read that after this. I have a reservation in. I believe I am at I am currently in position 53, though I might have moved up. Shall we refresh the page and see? It might make me log back in. Yeah, so let's log back in. And yes, I am a Sado who knows his library card number off by heart. I do wonder what that says about me, but yes, I am still in position 53. So, My thought is that if I only buy one book a month at this point, unless something really catches my eye, or I'm buying it for a video explicitly, like there is something that I just saw, which, listen, we're going to have a bit of a chat for a bit. You can skip ahead to the intro if you want, but this is fine, I'm going to have a bit of a chat. Today, I saw that Darren Shan posted a link to the entire Cirque du Freak collection for like £16. That's not including shipping, but whatever. Unless the shipping is also £15, then no. On that website, it's meant to be like 85 quid, and it's now 15 or whatever pounds, 15, 16 quid. I am definitely picking that up. When I was younger, I had the first 3, and I think I still have them. I have the first 3 on my shelf, and I won't be getting rid of those just because I have the new ones, because they've seen better days. But because they were so well loved, especially that first one. I've read it, the cover's slightly peeling or whatever, but those books are not new. I had them since I was very young, so having that full collection, which I never had, I read the first 6, I think. First 3 I owned, the next lot from the library, because I did love going to the library. I've always loved going to the library, rather, but I'll find space for it. And I know I'm meant to be doing better than that with, my impulsivity or whatever, but quite frankly, I made this little chart that I saw somebody else make something similar or use something similar, and I thought, that'd be really cool for myself to try and curb my impulses. And one of the first things it asks, it's like, have you thought about this for more than a week? I've thought about this since I was like 6 or 7, so too right. I think that's a yes, and I think I'm going to have to buy myself that, and I will make space for it, quite frankly. It's probably going to sit over... I've got a little shelving unit there, so that's probably where it's going to live, and I'm so excited. I'm absolutely getting that tomorrow. So yeah, anyway, I've been talking for nearly 10 minutes. Done French, according to yes. Stick around and see me talk about this. Well, this didn't at all go the way that I'd planned. I'm not going for a deep dive on this, but I think I could if I frankly felt it deserved my energy, or if I could have finished it, because yeah, this ended up being something that I did not finish. There aren't too many books that I hit the DNF button on, but I do have one major rule about it. If I'm getting that feeling, even really early on, that a book is bad but not fun enough to deep dive into, then I have to get to the 1/3 mark before I can close up. Because, some books are like daft to talk about, or there's something serious I feel like should be dived into. There's something toxic or harmful that I feel like should be addressed. Think of the most obvious authors, your E.L. James, Colleen Hoover, I think her name's Anna Todd, who wrote the After series. But getting to that 1/3 mark with a book like this is basically my way of giving a book a fair chance to change my mind. Sometimes it's a me problem. I'm just not having a good day when I start a book, so I can go, okay, I'm not dealing with this well on the first read, but I might pick up on it when I come... it might pick up for me when I come back to it the next day if I'm feeling better. I might just be having a bad brain day. Or I find that it improves over time. Sometimes it is the book itself. It just takes time for me to get into it. And don't get me wrong, I think as readers, we do usually know early on if we're picking up what an author is putting down. But I'm happy to have my mind changed, or at the very least see if it's so hilariously bad that I need to do a deep dive. And that happened here. Early on, I found myself going, I don't think I'm vibing with this. So I put a sticky tab note on the 1/3 mark and allowed myself a chance to start gelling with the book. And as I was getting through, I wasn't having the best time, but I figured that I could probably get through the whole thing and finish this up with it might not be my favourite book, but it was fine. The thing is, there's a very new writer feeling to a lot of this, and I have to say I don't care who wrote it. We have to separate that, especially early on. This book is really metaphor heavy, some of which genuinely reminded me of someone like Rocky Flintstone. Now, before you go Googling, let me explain. So, I've listened to the podcast My Dad Wrote a Porno since 2017, and Rocky Flintstone is the dad who wrote the porno, erotica, being read in said podcast, much to everyone's amusement. And the thing is, the cringe value of one's dad writing something like that is entertaining enough, but there's something about just how bad the writing is that brings it all together. And there are metaphors in this that really ring of some of the tiring ones found in the Belinda Blinked series. And the ones I'm thinking of aren't even sexual, they're just kind of exhausting. And I'm not saying that the writing in that is comparable to this, it's just some of the metaphors made me think about it, because that's the thing, metaphor after metaphor after metaphor, it gets tiring after a while, and it really feels like the sign of someone who doesn't feel comfortable with their own writing and storytelling. Because don't get me wrong, I use them plenty, they're useful, but when they're overused, it can feel like you're just calling to something your readers know as a kind of safety blanket, to use a metaphor. But for me personally, I was feeling a kind of some of the metaphors as well, they're just it's a bit middle class for me, but that's a personal thing rather than an actual issue with the writing itself. But yeah, it just, I don't know how to explain that it feels like someone who's a new writer, because as far as I'm aware, Dawn French isn't. I don't know if this is one of her early novels, but in terms of writing, I'm pretty sure she did write a fair amount of the comedy that she starred in, but at the same time, in terms of the sitcoms, but at the same time, it's a very different writing process. Hence the reason I have to say, you have to separate an author from their writing, what you know about an author from their writing in cases like this, because this book really suffers from, I don't know how else to put this, I often actively felt like I was reading a fictional book. And yes, I know, that's exactly what I was doing, but reading even the most mystical and fantastical of books should allow the reader to feel like it could be real, even if it obviously isn't. The scene where our main character, Rosie, meets the head of the household we're surrounded by, Glenn, really epitomizes this. Rosie is set to basically be a live-in nanny for two of Glenn's grandsons, while her son and his wife go through the divorce process. Rosie is meant to be deeply awkward in that particularly English way, and in concept that's fine. And I know what I just said, but I would say, knowing the writer, she knows how that kind of character functions. I will say more so in the setting of the Brits, but all the same, she knows the concept of this kind of character. This is mostly set in New York, by the way. But I can't help but feel like this character was meant to be seen and not read. And I am aware that I probably do have that thing in the back of my head about who wrote it, even if I shouldn't. I should have a separation there. But it's exaggerated in a way that I think would work on a screen, whereas here it feels forced. That whole scene, we're very much being told about the tension in the room between these two women, like a cat fight might break out any minute, but I was just not feeling that at all. I don't know what the opposite of palpable is, but that's where the tension was in that room. And the thing is, there are scenes later on, one in particular I'm thinking of, where she does do showing tension rather than telling us about it. But like I say, that scene really typifies for me the issues with the actual writing itself. Not the contents, but the actual composition, I guess. The characters are closer to caricatures than real people, and when I read a book like this, A Daft Slice of Life, I want to actually feel like I could meet a person like this. And don't get me wrong, there are often exaggerations when we read fiction. Like you could meet a person like this, but probably a little less. But here it's so overblown, it does just feel wholly unrealistic. And we get a lot of being told things, either instead of showing, or what we're being told versus what we're being shown doesn't necessarily add up. And don't get me wrong, I feel like I keep saying that. Anyway, you'll be used to it. There could be some things with the mismatch side of it that would have been revealed had I actually been able to finish it, if I sort of give her the benefit of the doubt on that one. We're told Rosie was a primary school teacher back in Cornwall, but we're shown a woman who seems like she's only ever had to babysit the kids of her friends and family. She doesn't act like she really knows what she's doing, if I'm honest. More like the fun auntie than someone who has ever run a tight ship of a whole group of kids. And she probably didn't have a huge group of kids when she was in Cornwall. Country living and all that, it's often small school. Sorry, my cat is throwing things at me. Zelda! There's a bunch of shit on the floor now. Okay, fine. I don't know where I was. Yeah, so, it's country living and all that. She probably was in charge of a relatively small classroom. That's usually the way it goes. But to me, that just makes it even more irritating that she's acting like she's sort of pretending to be a Mary Poppins figure. This might be fine in a book for children, the kind of way she's behaving, this overblown, everything's silly and fun all of the time rather than anything being serious, ever. And I get it, she's not their teacher. They do go to a proper school, so she wants to be the fun when they're not at school. But like the stuff like the gardening and taking them out on little adventures is fine, but she just does some stuff that feels so... I don't get it, but... Like I say, it might be fine in a book for children, but it's very much not that. And let's get on to that, shall we? Like, the real reason I went... No, actually, I will not finish this book. Well, we'll have to go a little earlier than that first to make it all make sense. So, we get to the start of Act 2, the part where the 1/3 mark was sort of in my sight, and it opens with Rosie going to a hotel room to meet someone, and it turns out she's meeting up with Thomas, Glenn's husband, and Glenn being, the woman of the household. She's pretty much the head of the household. She's the one that's running things around there. And I was definitely shocked. There were a few interactions between them, and there probably were a couple of signs of something brewing between them, to give French the benefit of the doubt, if I'm honest. Like, one of those things where if you were to read it a second time, though I don't recommend a first read, if I'm honest, you would see stuff between the two of them. Like, if I went back, I might be able to find that sort of thing. It wasn't screaming and obvious, but I think it's also the sort of point to be a little bit like, oh, this was a bit surprising. But this scene happened, and I was like, true, the writing still isn't the best, but it's not bad. It just feels like it's coming from a green writer, even if it isn't. But I did think that with the 1/3 mark around the corner, I might end up reading on. This bit of intrigue, where did this all come from, made me want to keep going. And when I did hit that mark, I went, okay, so I think I can stick with this. I probably won't recall too much about it come, say, wrap-up time at either summer or the end of the year, depending on when I do that. But it's just an okay book that I read in a sea of more memorable stuff. And when you read a lot of books anyway, you are going to find that there are a few that get lost in a sea of others. So, why then did I end up hitting the DNF button? So, the two boys that she's looking after have an older brother who's 18. Rosie is in her mid to late 30s. I can't remember specifics, and I don't care too much to find that out. She is over 35. I'm pretty sure from memory, she's about 37. Don't quote me on that, though. So the young twins, Rosie and Teddy, who is the brother, are all on this little roof garden they've been cultivating. And they have a little trio of tents set up, one for the twins, one for Rosie, one for Teddy. And they're all having a little low-key camping night. It's very cute and fun. The twins are asleep in their tent. So Rosie and Teddy are steadily getting quite drunk together. And she's giving him some advice about like talking to girls and stuff. Because he's feeling a bit insecure about being a virgin. And, you know, he's 18. That's perfectly normal. One, that he is still a virgin, but it's also like pretty standard to see people, especially guys, I think, who are a bit like, oh, I'm at this age and I still haven't slept with anybody or anything like that. And at first, it seemed like it was just gonna be a daft scene where she's giving big sister or like auntie type advice. You know, it might be a little bit cringy and a bit silly, but like that's what I'm reading a book like this for. And then he looks over to her and he notices that she's looking particularly good. Like, he notices her. He's really honing in on her. And I'm just going to read this directly from my notes here. I swear to Almighty God, if anything happens with Rosie and Teddy, I will just stop reading. He's 18, she's nearly 40. If he tries it on with her and she rejects him, fine. But there are so many lines crossed. First of all, she's old enough to be his mother. She shagged his fucking grandfather, for God's sake. And they have a few more drinks. And, well, to quote from my notes again, the last note I made on this book, actually. Done. I'm a man of my word. I know they were drunk, but Jesus. And the twins are in a nearby tent as well. Fucking hell. So no, I didn't finish this book. I have zero intention of ever going back to it either. If she were closer to his age, maybe even about my age, I'm 25, like, I might have continued. But it's not just the age. Like, there are 2 8-year-olds right near them. She's his brother's nanny, and she's already shagged his granddad. And don't get me wrong, character flaws are not writing flaws, but I was already not vibing with this book, and this scene just made me go, absolutely not. Maybe in a book I was actually jamming with, I might have read on to see the consequences of her actions, because this seems to me obviously a kind of House of Cards are ready to fall type thing, but I just went, I don't know that I'm interested in seeing how the rest of this goes. Because it was just like, it gave me the ick, to be frank with you. I just did not feel, again, like I say, character flaws and writing flaws are not the same thing. But it's so much coming together where I'm just like, at what point was this necessary? Like I said in my notes, like, if I actually don't think I don't remember if I actually read that. I think I might have scanned over it, but it's like if he tries it on with her and she rejects him, fine, but there are too many lines crossed for me. And I think that would have been a better choice. I think I would have stuck with it if he'd like tried it on, maybe they'd kissed because they're both drunk, and like, oh, something happened, then immediately it was like oh wait, no, we shouldn't have done this. And like, to be clear, there isn't an actual sex scene, but it's just clear that it happened. And I was just like, I don't know that I like this. I don't know that I care. I don't know that I want to read this anymore. I'm done. And the most fucking annoying thing about this whole experience is that I have ummed and ahed about the idea of keeping this book during the time that I've had and not read it. Like, so many times. Like I said, I have had this book since like 2016, 17, and I've had a couple of clear outs in that time of books that I have read and of books that I haven't that sit on my shelf going, me next, me next, me next. And I genuinely think that the biggest reason I put this on my shelf in the first place and subsequently kept it is just because of who the author is. I love Dawn French's TV work. Vicar of Dibley and Abfab art classics. And this does not change my opinion of her or her work. Like, why would it? It's just a middling to bad book. I am so annoyed that it's been sat there for so long, and I had a mini clear out recently, and I went, no, I think I will keep it. It's been here for a while. I should probably see what it's all about if it's been here for so long. And I think it was just like a sunk cost fallacy thing, and the fact that I couldn't finish it just, and like the book itself is not like actually problematic. There are some side-eye moments, but that could be said of any book, and I can't speak on what I didn't read, obviously. Closest it gets to anything that one might consider problematic is the fact that weight is brought up a lot in that very particular way that people, especially women of a certain age, talk about it. Like, if you know, you know. And I don't even think problematic is the right word to use. Like, I don't know. It's a case of people like this having to break away from a lifetime's worth of the way that body fat is fucking villainized. It's not perfect now, but it is better on the whole. And you can see the difference in how different generations talk on issues surrounding weight and body positivity and things like that. With this book, it's just one of those things where it's like, it's just really clear that someone in a certain demographic wrote it, and I mean, obviously that's going to be true for most books, let's be honest. But I think it's best I wrap up, because quite frankly, I don't want to talk about this book anymore. It's made me annoyed and kind of sad. I just, please recommend some good slice of life books to me so I can be free of this. Though I am pretty booked up reading wise for a while. I have a few library books, one book that was meant to be a library book. You might have seen I recently got a book series I've been wanting for a long time now, and I want to talk about that, but I'm still happy to get recommendations. I don't know, like, I have a date set for talking about that series, but I don't know if it will be quite right. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if that date will be enough time for me to do that. So there may be a point sometime soon where I take a bit of a break. I'll put like a short up or a reel on Instagram or whatever to let you know if I am just going to be like, oh, actually, this is taking longer than I thought. But anyway, feel free to like, feel free to subscribe, feel free to put your notifications on and all the other cringe shit I'm supposed to ask you to do in my videos. But most importantly, I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, a wonderful whenever you're watching this. Take good care of yourself. Right.